Good evening. Welcome back to United TV. Tonight we're going to be looking at a few of the stories coming out from Laurie Whitwell and Sky Sports, both talking about one of Manchester United's top targets, Elliot Anderson. It doesn't look like good news from a Manchester United perspective, but again, I think, well, we'll have to see what happens with this one. But as a Manchester United fan, I'm not going to be pushing Anderson as going to be a likely signing for Manchester United, but we will just go into what was being said and what is probably. It does seem to be that maybe Manchester City's strategy and their shortlist and the players they want to sign might actually cause a bit of a problem for United in the summer. And it does mean, I suppose, we probably talk about Anderson quite a lot. And I think most people are thinking Anderson, if he's going to go somewhere, maybe there's a small chance that he does stay at Nottingham Forest. But if he does go somewhere, then maybe Manchester City looks, I think most people would say it's the most likely destination at this point. But Manchester City, according to Laurie Whitwell, also looking at Enzo Fernandez as a possible option. Would there have any implication at all? A lot of people think that Rodri's going to go to Real Madrid, and then that's going to then mean that a Real Madrid midfielder possibly leaves the club. Real Madrid may be looking at Angela Stiller, so I don't know if they're going to have just one midfield player leaving, maybe leaving Real Madrid. But it does seem to be that would Manchester City actually look at buying Enzo Fernandez and Anderson? That would be one story which would be probably a bit of a nightmare for Manchester United if they did get two good midfield players in. And when we look at the story that's also being discussed, a couple of Sky Sports journalists on this one saying that Manchester City leading the race to sign Elliot Anderson, strong indications that he's heading to the Etihad. And I think at the moment, I don't think there's loads of information coming out from Elliot Anderson at the moment, but that's what most people are thinking that at the moment he's likely to go to Manchester City. Manchester United obviously have a big shortlist. And what are people thinking? Is it time for Manchester United to actually go quite aggressive to something and go for another potential target? Also, it should be said that given like some of the stories we've been talking about as well, we will look at this a little bit later, but there is a bit of news coming out that Manchester City also after two other targets. You've got Diamonde, you've got Junior Krupi there, two players that Manchester United have had on their sort of radar for a little while. Those are two players that I think Diamonde also linked to Liverpool. So Diamonde linked to Liverpool, Manchester City, and Manchester United. Krupi's one that we've been talking about a little bit recently, linked to Manchester United. A story that's probably unexpected a little bit because of the nature of the story, but it does look like sporting director Deco is going to prefer to spend 60 million plus on a new winger rather than keeping Marcus Rashford on his high salary. Manchester United will be getting Champions League football, I'm sure, next season. Then I guess if Marcus Rashford went back to Manchester United, he would also, his salary is already high, so he would be getting an even higher salary, and that could cause more problems as well based on where's he going to go next season. If Manchester United were trying to loan him out, it might be even more difficult. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But I said a long time ago, you can't trust Barcelona. Like if he was going to go to any club in the world in terms of like a loan option to buy, Barcelona is probably the most annoying one. Then I can't remember the terms of the contract. There might be I don't know if we get some money either way, whether we get like some money if they don't take up the option. There might be like a small amount, but it's a bit of a frustrating one. So I don't want to say too much about that one. It is pretty annoying. It is pretty annoying. But let me know what you guys are thinking at the moment. Say, I wish we got, say, Danny B saying, I wish we got 50 for Rashford from Saudi and agreed to go. No, I would say with this one, do you think there's like, in terms of like Laurie Whitwell's story, and he was talking in The Athletic, quite a lot of things in The Athletic about Manchester United at the moment, and he's saying that Enzo Fernandez is a potential option. Is there any sort of chance that, okay, everybody thinks that maybe the most likely option is going to be Anderson to City? What do people think regarding the options with Anderson? And so with Enzo, do you think there's a chance that Manchester City actually sign two? I know we're looking at midfield options for Manchester United. We're thinking that Manchester United will sign maybe at least a couple of midfielders. Most people think three. And we thought Manchester City would be looking maybe one in, one out. Get Rodri out the door to a different club. So I don't know. Do you get the feeling that Manchester City might actually try and do that and say, so they might do? Rodri could be off to Real. So if Rodri's going to Real Madrid, though, that's only one player leaving. I'm trying to think. Actually, I suppose you've got yeah, you have got someone retiring as well, haven't you? So or you got another player leaving the club. So it could be this. It could be that Manchester City losing two midfielders, actually bringing in two genuinely top quality midfielders as well. So, I mean, the deal with Chelsea, I imagine, would be quite expensive as well. So it could well be like that one. I think at the moment it's not quite done deal, but it looks like it's going to be a lot of changes at Manchester City. Manchester City, I think, are undergoing quite an aggressive rebuild, and I think they started that last year with Turkey, and they got Reindeers, they got Marmoush as well, who maybe isn't doing quite so well, but they got Semenyo and Mark Gahey. It does look a bit like Manchester City pretty much looking in the same direction as Manchester United. And I think the frustrating thing is Manchester City, they've got the advantage of being a club that's actually a bit more, they've obviously been a better club over the last 5 years, won quite a few Premier League titles. And the difficulty is going to be Manchester United are trying to catch up, and the players they want to buy are actually being bought by Manchester City. So it does seem to be that if you're looking at how Manchester United need to progress in the transfer window. It's almost like are we going to get our top targets, or are our top targets going to go to Manchester City? And would people be concerned that if we lost out on some of these top targets, it's going to cause a big problem? Like, do you feel relaxed that if Manchester United did lose out on a few of these players, it wouldn't be a problem, or do you think that this is potentially quite a big issue for Manchester United? And so, so Stephanie says Anderson isn't going anywhere if Forest win Europa League. And that what's the likelihood of Nottingham Forest winning Europa League? So that might be something that we need to discuss as well, and maybe it's something to keep an eye out. If you remember the situation, like Declan Rice, they won the Conference League with um with West Ham. Then he got sold for very big money. So maybe they're trying to keep him, and maybe that's going to be the way they're looking at it. But it would be quite difficult. I say Barcelona doesn't want to deal with Rashford's wages. They're trying to play a fast one. It could be. It could be that Marcus Rashford's obviously got quite a high salary, but I'm wondering what they're. I'm wondering what this, if there's more behind to that story than we actually know. And don't be so. You think City is 80, so 80% is going to go to City, and say we won't match the wages. I believe like that somebody sent me something earlier. I think there might be a fact that I think City might be already putting together an offer for for Anderson, like an offer on the table for him to sign in terms of like a 5-year contract. So it could also be it could also be that sort of situation that maybe the deal's like maybe it's going to be close to being done. I'm just wondering that if we find out maybe in a week's time that Nottingham Forest are safe from relegation, and depending on what happens in Europe, maybe we'll find out something soon. But I don't know. It's a bit of at the moment it feels a little bit like it's going to happen, doesn't it? So they have Calvin Phillips. He's 30. Yeah, I forgot about Calvin Phillips to be honest. Yeah, I would say with this one that Manchester United actually have pretty good relationship with Real Madrid in terms of players sales, and we've sold players to Real Madrid. We bought players from Real Madrid. I think, and I don't remember there being a lot of drama. Manchester United deals with Real Madrid are quite straightforward. The clubs have got a good long-standing history. Barcelona, on the other hand, I don't know. I suppose that you could go back to like say Mark Hughes having a bad time at Barcelona, coming back to Manchester United. I think this is different though. I think this is a player that's not going to come back to Manchester United. So I don't really know what's going to happen with this one. This potentially could be a bit of a problem for United, and I'm not sure what they're going to do. So I don't think that Rashford is. I know people were saying, what if Michael Carrick's in charge and he'll come back and uh, he'll want Rashford to come back, but I don't think this is a decision for Michael Carrick. I think this is a situation where Marcus Rashford is not going to feature at Manchester United again, and it's a bit of a problem. So no, surely, yeah, no, no, he does for sure. In terms of like the situation though, does this force Manchester United to actually pivot to a different midfielder? are we going to have a discussion where if it looks like Elliot Anderson is somewhat off the table, does that mean that Manchester United that and we don't want to be sat here kind of waiting to find out what happens. Does this mean that Manchester United should try and go maybe quite aggressively look at another target? Because there's definitely probably a bit of momentum gathering with a few of the other targets, and potentially, I suppose, if you take Anderson off the table, and if we just put a few other options there that I know we've been talking about quite a few players recently. So there's going to be a few players that we've been discussing a while ago. But does this mean that Manchester United might be looking at, is there an option to go and get too many? Are they interested in Adam Wharton? Would they be actually prepared to make an offer for Belieber in terms of like, you have to say Anderson at this point in time might be considered almost off the table. If I was Manchester United, I would be say like, no, if you don't hear anything with Anderson, I'd probably be I'd probably be assuming that that deal is going to happen at some point, and I don't think it's worth. He might have been a top target, but this feels a little bit like the situation with Semenyo that United. Everybody knows that United want to get Anderson, but I think we also have to be realistic that Anderson's going to go to a team that's been lifting the Premier League trophy with regularity and is investing massively. All it is like over the next few years, I think Manchester United might be getting back somewhere where they need to be, but Manchester City are literally all there. They could already win the league this season as well, and it would be quite difficult to imagine. I can't imagine Manchester United in the title race next season, but you could imagine that Man City might actually be a stronger team next season based on the players they're signing. So I can see why this would happen, and it's a bit frustrating, but I can see why this deal might be happening. Welcome, Alex Ferguson. Good to see you in the chat. Thanks for your message yesterday. I think it was when you were saying about the channel. So thanks for getting involved. Good to see you in the chat as well. And I always like remember like there's quite a few like every couple of days there's a couple of people post comments that find the channel again. So thanks, Alex. I don't know if you on social media platforms at all, but if people could share the stream, then that's massively appreciated. But in terms of this, these are probably the targets I think United were initially looking at. At the moment, too many feels like one that I saw a story about too many as well. I think it was Andy Mitten was talking about too many and said he's the only player in Spain that Manchester United are looking at the moment. So if you see stories about other players in Spain, I mean, possibly Camavinga was actually talked about a couple of weeks ago. There was like some sort of tenuous link. There is potentially sometimes one or two other Spanish midfielders discussed, but according to Andy Mitten, who's usually pretty reliable. The only player in Spain that Manchester United are looking at the moment is going to be too many. I'm guessing that at the moment the only player they're looking at in Germany is probably Angela Stiller, and I think then you go most of the players they're looking at are going to be in the Premier League. So that's why I think that some of the deals people have been suspecting maybe the Belieber situation will actually happen. One update on the Belieber situation as well is that apparently they're getting quite close to buying their replacement for Belieber. So the fact that the replacement for Belieber might be coming in quite soon, I think, is actually slight. Maybe it is positive news. I mean, I don't know whether Manchester United could hijack that deal and just, but yeah. Yanni said there was a story about Barcelona that the head scout wanted someone else in the wing, but the manager wanted Rashford. So it seems like Deco is like the person that's making the call, but no, it could be that there's the differences of opinion. Welcome, JR. Good to see you, JR. If you're free on Sunday, we will be doing a big call-in show again. We will be looking at getting maybe more guests involved, so we'll have like a maybe a 50-minute time limit, and people will come and go, and we'll get as many people in as we can. But probably no Arsenal fans this week for obvious reasons. They might be getting even worse if things happen the way they could be happening. Say, have I given credit to Ineos for the players they brought to the club and say you should feel confident they will bring more players in? I've regularly said I think the transfer situation's moving in the right direction, but a lot of work to be done. That I still seem confident though. If Manchester United don't get Anderson, you got too many there. If Manchester United don't get too many, there's going to be possibly like Tonali's not in that picture either, but he's another option. And I think Manchester United probably are going to go for maybe Belieber. They're, they're probably going to go for Angela Stiller. and they're good players. Like I know people will look at Belieber, but I'll just say if they get Belieber for a better price, it might not be the worst situation in the world. It always depends on who else they're going to buy alongside him. And there seems to be for some reason quite a lot of news today. There's one player that we haven't talked about maybe with quite so much kind of certainty recently. There was a story that was being posted not that long ago in the last hour. I don't know if it's credible. I don't know how believable it is, but this is just something Ben Jacobs said recently. But the story I saw about an hour ago was apparently Manchester United are actually considering making a bid for Alex Scott. So it seems a bit out of the blue, and it does seem that Alex Scott is probably it wasn't on the top sort of 4 or 5 players people were thinking about recently. But if something happens along those lines, then we'll probably hear about it. But it would be strange if Manchester United actually went for Alex Scott as their first player they try and sign. That would be a bit bizarre. The only thing I can think of is that potentially they might be looking at the situation with Anderson and thinking if they think Anderson's not possible and they've already moved on, there's definitely been stories recently over particularly the last 24 hours that have been pushing Belieber a bit to the fore. So I'm starting to see I'm starting to see more Belieber news, and I'm starting to see more news about other targets possibly on players we could be getting. I say no, not Tyler Adams. It's Alex Scott. We got that picture had a couple of pictures on, but it's Alex Scott that Manchester United are considering making an offer. That's at the moment that's a little bit of a breaking type of story. So I don't know if that's actually true or not. I think we'd have to see if something does happen. Then I think journalists will be all over that. It's a little bit like I remember saying yesterday. I think yesterday evening we did the Mathis Fernandez story, or was it 2 days ago about the links to Paris Saint-Germain? I think that's actually been going everywhere now. A lot of people have been talking about that today as well, and the Van der Ven situation as well. I think the most up to date information on Van der Ven is that maybe the United are actually considering that his injury record's not great as well. So no, there's going to be like one key deal, isn't there? And it feels a little bit like, say, the TV presenter. What's the question, JR? I just saw the comment, but I didn't really see what was. Yeah, we don't want to have to have yeah, we don't want to have too many Arsenal fans because it's got to be the calling shows are open for everybody, but there has to be limits on what people can say. The Rodri deal will affect how City pull the trigger for midfields, and say it depends on if Rodri's injury record isn't like amazing. If you're looking at the situation with Rodri, and if Real Madrid are looking to rebuild, and I don't know, the thing that makes me interested in this is that Real Madrid want to get a top quality player in. They like to go for a bit of a rebuild, and Real Madrid they're going to be. The problem is that Real Madrid eventually tend to get players they want. Do they really want Rodri though? It's probably for me is the question. Like, do they want Rodri? What happens if if you go to the World Cup and you see Anderson playing alongside Bellingham for England doing really well? Why wouldn't Real Madrid look at Anderson as a good option instead of Rodri? I mean, there is a lot of questions about how Rodri's injuries have affected him. There's no doubt that a few years ago Rodri was a good player. I think, if anything, I think Rodri's a little bit overrated. I mean, I know people say he's a good player. He's a good player, but I don't think Rodri is like people are talking about Rodri like I don't know, like he's George Best. And I think he was good, but it's probably one of the more disappointing Ballon d'Or winners in recent years. But the Rodri hype, I think this season he wasn't very good. We played against Manchester City with Rodri. I don't think he was fantastic. I don't see why Real Madrid buy him. Like I can imagine it a few years ago. If Man City had just finished the treble and Rodri was a key player, I think it's like too. I think it's way too risky. Like way too risky. So if Real Madrid are effectively going to be selling top quality players to replace them to get Rodri in, I just don't think he's the same player. So again, that's my view. If you think Rodri's a worthy player, think of it from your point of view as a Man United fan. If you're a Manchester United fan, would you be happy if Manchester United were linked to Rodri? Like when we talked about too many, there was probably, I think, probably like 77% of people voting said we would take too many. And I think most people, like probably over 90% of people would take Anderson. I think it'd be very high for Tonali. What would happen if Manchester United were linked to Rodri? What would you think? Because if we're linked to Rodri, my first reaction would be he's had lengthy periods out. I would be he's too injury prone. Like for Man United to, you're talking about expensive players. He's for me, he's just too injury prone. And like, there's no doubt he's got ability, but I would just not be, I would not be guessing, I would not be gambling. The Premier League is not the best one in terms of like, if you're covering carrying some injury issues, and maybe it's affecting your speed a bit, and maybe it's affecting. Rodri was a pretty solid player before that, but I would be quite reluctant to spend big money. Man City know what they're doing. I'd be a bit surprised if Real Madrid did replace some of their quality players with Rodri, but I don't know. Sometimes Real Madrid get most things right, but like, they did sign Thomas Gravesen, so anything's possible, I guess. JL said Van de Ven is rapid, but all over the place positionally. I think Van de Ven is probably. I think Van de Ven divides opinion, doesn't he? If you like Van de Ven, then you're going to find some positives there. He's quite good bringing the ball out. He's pretty good attacking wise. He's scored a few goals. I think with Van der Ven, I think he's a bit error prone for me, and it might be that it's possibly. And I don't want to say too much about Van der Ven because I don't watch Spurs a lot. Last season, Spurs beat us 4 times. I don't want to watch Spurs. That it's quite nice to see them dropping down the league. But when I've seen highlights, I think Van der Ven sometimes is a bit culpable for some of the issues. I'm not going to say Van der Ven's responsible for the situation because Romero, like red card Romero, you've got other defenders all over the place. I think Spurs have got some awful goalkeepers as well. Their midfield's bit, bit disorganized to say the least. And to be honest, like Spurs are just they look like a terrible team. They keep going for different managers. I think actually Spurs have finally got a head coach that's actually good and it might be just in time, but it's going to be very tight whether they can actually stay in the league. If Van der Ven costs like I don't know how much he'd cost. I think there's better options and slightly cheaper options, but it's really difficult as well. Let's say City are trying to offer Rodri a new contract, are they? So City are trying to offer Rodri a new contract, but are hindered by his preference to Madrid. This sounds a bit like Camavinga situation where it feels like Camavinga, there's not Camavinga, it feels like too many. Whether too many wants a new contract, whether he wants a bigger contract, or whether he just wants to leave Madrid. And if City want to get Rodri and keep Rodri, that's interesting because I was thinking that City wanted to offload Rodri for injury issues, but maybe they don't want to do that. So that interest. The thing that's frustrating is it feels like we're going to lose either way. That if Real Madrid and Manchester City both want players Manchester United want, I think it's going to be quite difficult for United at the moment. I think we're going to have to. We might have to accept that as good as we think Anderson is, we might have to look at other options. And I suppose my question would be: imagine like you wake up tomorrow and it's like terms agreed. Manchester City or Elliot Anderson is going right. Liking Manchester City's social media posts, going, yeah, I'm happy to join Manchester City. It's going to be like £120 million deal and like a 5-year contract. So we go right. He's gone. What do you think next? Like, what's your first thought regarding who we're going to get? Like, do people look at like Tonali too many and think, right, there's the experience. Those are the players we should be looking at to start with. Or do you think, right, Angela Stiller or Baliba, or even like Alex Scott, or even like Joe Gomez, people have been talking about? Do you think, right, let's just get a deal done that we think is a good deal, just to get the ball rolling? Make sure we make it. No, make sure we sign someone better than Agate, so we can move Agate out to start with, and then look at maybe trying to get what you consider to be the elite target. Because I think United have to make sure they get a very good defensive-minded player. If Anderson's going to be going, I mean, I'm not going to bother too much. I'm not going to be thinking, oh no, it's a tragedy if Anderson goes. It's disappointing, but there's a lot of people there. Say City offer 600k to Rodri, say per week on the books. Yeah, I think with this one, it's like how much is Rodri's parents going to get out of this deal? Are Rodri's family going to get some new houses or something? There'll be something with this one that City are paying suspiciously. Well, they're paying incredible salaries. I'm not quite sure how City managed to how they're going to actually meet this European rule about is it like 70% of turnover? Because it feels like City are throwing a lot of money at this. So they offered Gundogan a contract before he left as well, did they? So is there a reason why players are like not wanting to stay at City? That's because the contracts they're given are pretty big. I don't think they gave Kevin De Bruyne a new contract, did they? He must have wanted to go. So if Anderson goes to City, so we can still recruit well. Just hope the ownership is ready. I think so. I think the shortlist is that of line where I think United must be thinking the probability is going to be that Anderson is off the table. And do you get the feeling that's why the story this morning I was talking about that the links with Belieber are kind of heating up? The fact journalists are actually finding out there's a South American player that I can't remember the name of the player now, but it looks like Brighton have like got a deal done or they're getting close to getting a deal done. So it looks like Brighton already kind of found the player they wanted. Do you remember when we got Belieber and it was like the player had already pretty much Brentford already had like three players they were looking at signing. So yeah, let's see this. So yeah, I was saying earlier that you said sent to me earlier saying a 5-year contract proposal to Anderson's camp, wages at £200,000. City pushing to finalise the deal before the World Cup begins to avoid his price tag ballooning, which is interesting. So I think people are really expecting the World Cup to throw out some crazy prices, like really crazy prices. So um, and I suppose this is the factor as well that do you remember last transfer window when Man United were quite slow? Then this is why I'm saying that if there's actually a deal to be done for one of these players, like and I said Belieber because he's talked about quite a lot, but it could be Jack Gomez, it could be like Angela Stiller. Why not get this deal done quite quickly? And that's why when I saw this story, and I did just say I don't know how believable it is, but we will follow it up. Hopefully there'll be something coming out. It was that if Manchester United are looking at Alex Scott and that's one player that Bournemouth have put a valuation of 65 million. Apparently, Manchester United are looking at trying to offer about 50. And is Alex Scott worth like 55, 60 million? I mean, it's quite a lot. I mean, I don't think he's been on the radar of a lot of people until recently. The Matheus Fernandes situation, I think at West Ham might be another good one. If West Ham get relegated, he's gone, and it's going to be a really cheap deal. And I hope Manchester United are actually ready to try and get him. But I get the feeling that he's still quite young, and I don't think it's going to be necessarily the best option either. So what, Haaland 500k a week. Say so. Let's go for this. So you're surprised. Say 200k a week is fair, says Cody. I believe £200,000 a week is the salary that, if you remember, Gallagher going from Atletico to Spurs, I think he's on £200,000 a week as well. So Kobe Mainu on £150,000 a week. I'm guessing Tonali would be wanting something similar, if not very slightly more as well. So I think £200,000 a week for Anderson. Now, as much as it is for a 23-year-old, it's probably about the kind of like probably about the value that players are going for. And if Kevin De Bruyne was on, double that as well. Welcome, Broken verdict to the chat. Hope you're good today. I'm assuming you're a Manchester United fan, and if you are, welcome to the community. And feel free to share some thoughts on who you'd actually want to sign based on discussions today. And for people that are just tuned in that are new as well, the main sort of driving force of the discussion really is just looking at some news articles and seeing Laurie Whitwell talking in the Athletics saying Manchester City looking at getting Enzo Fernandez. We're talking about the Rodri situation with Rodri going to possibly looking to go to Real Madrid. Manchester City do want to keep Rodri, it seems, but maybe Enzo Fernandez is going to be a player they look at if Rodri goes, as well as Anderson. I mean, the fact that Manchester City also lost another midfielder, maybe they're looking for improvements on Phillips as well. That yeah, I think with City, it doesn't really matter what players they've got, does it? They would always be looking to get other players. Remember when they bought, I think it was like, was it left backs? And they bought about three left backs, quite expensive. So I don't think it matters what position City got players. When they've got Haaland, they'll still be looking for other strikers. So it is a differently run club to United, and this is from like Sky Sports that. And to be honest, like I think Sky Sports usually report kind of like more mainstream stuff, but most people have been thinking the same sort of thing, and that's why we're talking about the situation with Anderson. And I think from a Manchester United perspective, then we're probably just looking at where's the next move for Manchester United. Let's assume he's off the table, and there is like a lot of complexity about how much Anderson's going to be worth. And I remember somebody sent me a message earlier tonight saying that the price Anderson's going to be costing probably depends on. There's a few different things in the contracts that legally they're not allowed to be called clauses, but they are sort of conditions that are dependent on what happens with Nottingham Forest. If they get relegated, there will be a lower price for certain clubs. And I think getting Champions League football means that the price would be below 100 million. Okay, this is kind of the what people are thinking, but you can't say too much because legally, apparently, I think the Nottingham Forest owner did try and prosecute somebody that had leaked something before. So I think Ben Jacobs or somebody similar to Ben Jacobs, I think it was Ben Jacobs that said that there is some sort of different scenarios that the price changes. The word from Nottingham Forest is the price should be over 100, should be like a record fee, close to Caicedo money. That's the situation from Nottingham Forest. The reality is, it depends how Nottingham Forest do. If they get relegated, which looks unlikely, but if they had got relegated, the price would be lower. If they get Champions League football, that price will be actually higher as well. If they miss out on Champions League football but stay in the Premier League, you're looking at still expensive. But so yeah, so I think at the moment it looks unlikely that they're going to be getting 125. That's for me is crazy. And if Manchester City, I would actually be surprised if Manchester City pay say 100 plus on the books, but in reality it's Manchester City, so the deal might seem suspiciously cheap, which is the case with some, but sometimes Manchester United, so Manchester City deals, they do tend to end up with money going somewhere, if that makes sense. So. Hmm, a bit suspicious. Also, if you want to share any information as well, Broken Verdict, then there's a few people that are regular contributors in terms of like bit of information, other things they post in the chat as well. There is a Discord, Facebook group, etc. that's kind of associated with the channel. I did actually post something recently. I think it might have been a Mathis Fernandez highlight reel in the Discord. There's a few things I've been finding recently. So Danny says that the big, say, fat brown envelopes under the table. Yeah, how much money did it get? Was I trying remember when they got Haaland at Man City? Wasn't it 20 million to the agent? And I think it was the agent relation. It wasn't like going to his dad, was it? But there's something about the Haaland deal which is definitely involves tens of millions, not going through legitimate accounting procedures. Put it that way. Um, but yeah, City pushing hard for the race for Anderson. Been working on it for over a month. They're prepared to offer him very big money, big salary. Yeah, so they're looking at this as if you're Manchester City, then there's one club in the Premier League that's got more financial muscle if it gets back to the top. If Manchester United can get back to the Champions League with regularity and be run efficiently, Manchester United does have the financial power to compete with City. I think City are effectively just they're trying to do what Manchester United did like 25 years ago. Manchester United pretty much bought Arsenal's best players when Arsenal were the second best team in the Premier League. And we're looking at the same sort of scenario again, aren't we? We're looking at it's a bit like Bayern Munich, just buying the best talent in Germany. Manchester City are buying the best players in the Premier League. They got Semenyo, they got Guehi, they're after Anderson, and it's going to be effective, isn't it? It's for City, it's literally a no-brainer. They've been doing it with like they got Sterling, they got Grealish. They're looking in the Premier League, who's available that's going to improve their team, and they're just going for them. So it is annoying. I think Manchester United are actually the only people that aren't selling players to Manchester City. It seems to be that way. Well, apart from Tevez, and then yeah, clearly he wasn't very popular after that one. And welcome, Kate, to the chat. Good to see you. So it would be a pity to miss out on Anderson, which it would be, but other options are available. So we just need to speed up a little bit. We do, don't we? We just need to be a bit quicker. Then, if we'd have gone to the table for Belieber, maybe like a month early in the transfer window, I mean, it is Brighton, so possibly not. But I think we could have got better. I think we could have got better terms than we did. I think it got a bit crazy. Like, if Manchester United want to get, so we'll look at a couple of options. I'll put the options back on because it does have a picture of Anderson as well. If Manchester United wanted to go for, I don't know, just pick one of these players or pick one of your favourite targets. If you wanted to go for Belieber or you wanted to go for Wharton, we can't hang around because uh, these players are only going to go up in value. If Anderson goes for big money, Rodri goes, and like other players start being bought and sold, I think the transfer window each year they're getting more expensive, and the World Cup is probably going to be. I think what's going to happen is there will be some players in the World Cup that play very well. They will go for very big money because it always happens. There'll be a bit of hype. There'll be one of the players of the tournament. They'll go for crazy money, but that will almost set a precedent for maybe not. It shouldn't really happen, but it might set a precedent that suddenly people think if a midfielder starts going for over 100 million again, and if an attacking player or defensive player starts going for big money, suddenly the market starts taking off, and United need to get in a bit early. But Broken Verdict says I wouldn't buy him for 100 million. If Tonali is 100, so it might be considered worse, but a bit more of a leader. And yeah, you make a good point, and I've been saying this for a few days recently as well that we are losing a leader and the experience of Casemiro. So maybe like when I was talking yesterday, and I had a guest from Norway on yesterday, Helgi. He's a very big fan of Tonali. So if you ask everybody in the chat, and you ask me and other guests as well, everybody's going to have a different view on their favorite midfielder. So I've said for about a year, my favorite option was Anderson. But if Anderson's not available, you have to look at what else is around. But when I was talking to Helgi last night, he said that he wanted Tonali several years ago. He's a player he's just been monitoring for a long time. There's actually quite a few people that look at Wharton and think he's a player that we should be buying as well. So it's not off the table. Can't get. Well, we can always get some good options. It's just if you don't get your top target, it's a shame. But remember last season, our top target was Delap, and we didn't get him, and that was pretty good results. I'm trying to think that there was another top target that we tried to go for and we didn't get. I can't remember who it was now, but there was a top target we tried to get and it was disappointing. I would say, actually, yeah. So I was trying to think who had Wharton as a top choice, but Berber says Wharton has been your top choice as well. He was actually, if you remember, about a year ago, at this stage of the season, a year ago, I think, or maybe after the summer window, there was loads of stories saying that Manchester United as a club look at Wharton and Belieber as maybe like the partnership they want. And to be honest, that's still on the table. I mean, we could kind of guess who's going to go where, but if Manchester United wanted to have Wharton and Belieber in their team, I think it's achievable. I mean, I know Liverpool are linked to Wharton, and people think they're advanced with that one, but they did think the same with Mark Gahey. So maybe Manchester United can make an offer that Wharton can't refuse. I don't know. We could certainly offer him more first team football, I think, in the near future. And for one, I think Wharton's a good player. And I think that if they're talking about the price of being potentially 60 to 65, that there was a sort of talk about there might be there might be some. I think it was like, I don't know if it's a gentleman's agreement or some sort of agreement or some sort of thing with him is that he would be able to leave for about 60 to 65. So it wouldn't be the sort of crazy price tags that we've been talking about. So yeah, I don't know. I'll say a couple of shouts for too many. So too many would be my option from the 4 year showing. So I'll just say a few other options that we talked about over the last week or so have been. I think we talked about Joe Gomez. We talk about Angela Stiller quite a lot on this channel because Christopher Vabel is a big fan of him. We talk about, say, in terms of players people like, I think Matheus Fernandes at West Ham is a player we talk about as well. And probably Boadi is one that people mention because he is a good player. But he feels a bit like that sort of signing that Manchester United might not make now. He's going to be a bit more expensive. The only other one I think we do talk with like quite a lot of regularity is probably Hayden Hackney, but that's one because he was quite effective when Michael Carrick was at Middlesbrough, and it could be that yeah, if Michael Carrick stays, possibly that. Danny says none of them, only Anderson. So Danny, you might be the most disappointed then if you want only Anderson. I mean, you've got to have a short list because there's a lot. There's a lot as well. Um, So Belieber fell off, came to start for Brighton. I need to speak to the Brighton fan I know for the Brighton preview because I'm seeing more information. I've seen more stories about Belieber, and I really want to get her on to actually find out what Brighton are thinking about Belieber at the moment, whether there's like some sort of issue. So that will be something hopefully quite soon. I say still at 50. So actually interestingly. Angela Stiller, I haven't spoken about him like specifically for a while because there hasn't been breaking news, but no, he is definitely one of the people that lots of people are very keen on. Danny says he likes Matheus Fernandes if West Ham go down. Yeah, if West Ham get relegated, £34 million gets the deal done. Apparently, Sangare looked pretty good at Lens as well. I think someone sent me a highlight reel of his good defensive player. Good option. I'm not sure whether Man United go too many players non-Premier League. One thing I could, one thing I did see is that in terms of this, I'm trying to think what the example was. Remember we talked about Turkey a year ago, and we're talking about the price of Turkey and what a good deal he would have been. Then I think he's proved to be a really good signing for Man City. I wasn't surprised. I think a few people looked at him and thought, is it the right club for him? Because City sometimes they kind of take the flair out of the player, but he was a good signing, and I think that was one that was quite good value for money. So Alex Scott. So do you Danny, then question for you because this is a story I saw that not this like actual screenshot, but there's another story talking about Alex Scott that said Manchester United are going to be making an offer for Alex Scott quite soon. And my thoughts on that were I get maybe they're testing the water. The story is though that Bournemouth are not Bournemouth are not really keen to sell, but let's be honest, Semenyo, Dean Houston, that Kirkes, like Bournemouth sell, and they do then recruit well, but they do sell again, and Bournemouth do keep doing that and doing that. So I think Bournemouth will sell. They just want to get the best possible price. So whether that's 50 million, 55, 60, I think United think 50 is fair. I think they're looking at trying to get a bit more, but I don't know if they can. I think if West Ham get relegated, then Matheus Fernandes will be. It's going to be a fight for him because he's going to have a lot of people wanting him. Welcome, Sadek. Good to see you as well, Sadek. Said that I know. I remember when we were talking about this last year. You were a big fan of Belieber. You were probably like very disappointed that he didn't get signed as well. And now, based on this one, we talked about Belieber. I think we talked about Belieber this morning. And the price point that people agreed on was about, I think most people said they'd pay 60 million if they're going to pay, like, go for Belieber. I believe United might want to try and test the water at 50, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Saying the only player that has indicated he wants Manchester United so far is Belieber, then yeah, that's probably why, Steph. That is why when we're having these discussions and I get maybe a few guests on, and I said last night, I think Belieber will be a Manchester United player, and some people will want him, some people don't want to get him, but at the moment, like Manchester United have to rebuild their midfield. They have to probably get three people in. They need to try and get someone in before the World Cup because they're going to have less time after the World Cup. Prices might get higher as well. I know Belieber's not going to be there, but they need to get some of these deals done. And I think that's the one that the story today is starting to have the energy that the same as Brighton with Mbeumo, Brighton, say with Bournemouth with Brentford with Mbeumo, Brighton are going to get the player signed. Then they're just going to want to they're just going to want to try and cash in as much as possible. I think United, if we offered about 60, I think it's about fair. I mean, I don't think it's overpaying too much, just considering the market. Like the market could go crazy. So we're talking about the same sort of price as Gittins and Alanga, and with a lot of potential. Like 3 years down the line, it could be a very different story, couldn't it? That we're looking at a very good season for Belieber, a disappointing season, but yeah, with a lot of potential. We know his upside is good, but we know that people are questioning. That's why I want to get a Brighton fan on to kind of get that. But and I think we're in a Manchester United team with better players around him. I think it could be good. Now, if you got Belieber plus Wharton plus Alex Scott, for example, or you got Belieber plus Joe Gomez plus Alex Scott, and you got Koemanu as well. Yeah, it's hardly the same as having, say, Toby Collier and Ugarte, is it? It's a lot better quality. I think Tchouaméni is the most exciting for me in terms of if there's nothing wrong with him, there's no injury issues, Real Madrid are trying to keep him, and he just decides to leave. That would be good because best case scenario, it's like getting Casemiro but several years younger. I think is he 25, 26, and Casemiro must have been was he like 29 or something. So yeah, I think it's getting him at the right time, 100%. So I'll just check that in a second. Yeah, people have got. I do ask this question a lot about top three signings. It does change a little bit day by day. My top three signings probably are not obtainable, but at the moment, based on that information I've seen and potential players, I think my top three signings might be Anderson, Tchouaméni, and then I'm thinking, so you've got too many good defensively. Anderson, who would I want alongside him? That's kind of difficult, isn't it? A third option, I'm not sure. Maybe a Wharton or Angela Stiller, maybe one of those players, but. I think there's if I got Anderson and too many in, I'd probably be quite relaxed about the third one. So I'd be thinking, right, third one would be maybe like Joe Gomez, Wharton, Stiller. I think you'd have so many good options. Then it would be, yeah, and actually Fernandez could be cost effective. It is tricky, isn't it? You look at these options and think there's literally there isn't a scenario where someone's going to say that would be a terrible midfield. It would be very good, but I think we're kind of like arguing over what's going to be the best. So we can easily get three. We can easily get three top midfielders for that sort of price, can't we? There's bargains there to be had. Like it's just about being a bit more sensible. So let me just double check some messages. I'll just say I can't actually get guests using this software, so I can't actually have any guests on this software, unfortunately. But what I will do is when I've got yeah, when I have time to organize things before, I think once I start streaming with this software, I can't add guests. But if I start planning a say on StreamYard or Restream like I did last night, I can just send you the link. But I can't actually add people on this one. Otherwise, otherwise, no, it'd been great to get you on. But this one's like slightly quicker to set up because I can just have things like good to go. But no, if you're free tomorrow, let me know because I might do something a bit shorter tomorrow. It is Friday night, maybe a little bit earlier, a bit shorter, and you're absolutely welcome to come on then. Elliot says Anderson, Wharton, and Tonali. As I just what I find now is that whenever I see three midfielders, my brain's like mentally doing the calculation. I'm thinking, okay, Anderson very expensive, Wharton 60, 65, Tonali very expensive. I like those players, Elliot, but I think you might be. Yeah, it feels like the price is right. I think that might be a little bit expensive for Manchester United's transfer budget this summer, unless Newcastle are not going to play ball, are they? So they're not going to help us at all, are they? Say Tonali, Fernandez, and Tchouaméni. So again, I suppose that if West Ham get relegated, I think you can get all that for under 200 million. So or about maybe Tonali, maybe about 200 million. So you kind of need we kind of need West Ham to get relegated to help us a bit, don't we? And then maybe we can get their left back, and that would be quite good business. But I still want Spurs to get relegated. That's the problem. Ryan says, when I talk about players, I tend to use the what I expect rather than what I want, making the disappointment easier to handle. Yeah, if I'm looking at the players on the screen, I think if you look at Belieber's upside over the last couple of seasons, and you factor in that Manchester United, well, hopefully, they're going to be a different environment to Brighton, so Belieber's not going to necessarily start every single game. You're hoping that we're going to have decent coaches around, but also he would learn quite a lot from like Bruno Fernandes, Cunha, and Bremo, some more senior players in the team. And I think Belieber will naturally he's going to improve over the next couple of years. I think he's still 2 years younger than Anderson. And if you consider is he 21 and Anderson's 23, then like 2 years ago Anderson wasn't being talked about in the same way. And I think if you wait if Belieber you wait till he's like 23, 24, I think he could be a much improved player as well. So it is really difficult to say like I don't think I can write off a player that's that age. It's like talking about Kobe Mainoo and saying, "Oh, he can't do this. He can't do like what he can't do." But no, he's 21. Then I can't think of many people that are a finished midfielder at 21. They're all going to improve different things. I think at 21, Paul Scholes was probably a completely different player, and Roy Keane were completely different players to how they spent most of their career. They were just like a lot more attacking, and that they developed in a very different way. So you want to have Wharton, Anderson slash Stiller, and you expect Belieber, James Madison, is he still playing football? If we get James Madison, should we just start watching a different sport? Like, should we just all start watching basketball? I think if I don't think Manchester United are going to get James Madison. Hasn't he had like quite a lot of injury problems this season? And I think if United, like, I think United can get Stiller and Belieber no problem. And like Stiller, Belieber, and Joe Gomez sounds like a midfield that wouldn't cost that much and would be quite achievable and would still be good quality. And I think United will be looking to try and get players that cost more than that anyway. So yeah, yeah, we can all agree on saying no match. Yeah, no. To us, I think if Manchester United announced this time Belieber, I wonder if people's reaction would change. I think when we talk about like players, people can be a little bit like I can't remember at the time. I think most people were universally happy with Cunha, and I think in Bremer most people were happy as far as I know. I think Sesko was maybe. I think because we didn't really have a striker, I think people were happy, weren't they? And yeah, I think United. I think it could be key. I think United are looking. So like Maina wouldn't look that good with Agate. No one looks that good. Like Casemiro couldn't carry Ugarte, nor could Mainu. And I think that there are probably some midfielders that if you put alongside Mainu, it wouldn't be ideal. But I think that's kind of the fun about the situation is that United do get to. Now, it's not like we're looking for one player to come in. We get to shape the midfield in one window, don't we? We get to actually buy two or three players, and we probably spend like people. I think most people are thinking we spend 100 and like 180 to 200 million on it. So we're going to be doing quite a lot. Sadik says you want to get a number six plus a number eight. So you want to get Belieber. Who's your other top target? So I know you've been a big fan of Belieber for a while. Let's say how much should Belieber say? Yeah, this is probably the point as well. If Manchester United signed Tonali, then I think Tonali and Mainu are the starters. And if Manchester United signed too many, like too many is a starter, and then where does Belieber fit in? Like, is Belieber going to take the place of? Like, I think that Angela Stiller might be the other signing. So if they got too many Belieber and Angela Stiller, then I'd imagine that Mainu and too many of the starting players. That's my guess at the moment. I think they see Mainu as a starting player, and maybe they're looking at too many, thinking he brings the experience that Casemiro had, and then Belieber and Angela Stiller might be players that are trying to fight to get back, to try and get into that team. But now, Believer might not be a starter, and that might be why Manchester United value him at a certain price. But it might be that clearly he's a starter for Brighton. I say our board cannot afford too many. I think the price is about 70 million. I think too many is not that much difference in price from a lot of our players that we're looking at. So Apparently, that's the price. I mean, too many. I believe he's got what 2 years on his contract. If he doesn't extend it, it's going to start going into the. He'll just start ticking his contract down. With 1 year on his contract, he's just going to become cheaper. So no, it's not one of those situations where, like Real Madrid wanted to re-sign, and they probably want to put him on like another lengthy deal, so his price would be high. But he's not doing that. So I think it becomes a different situation, doesn't it? I think too many is affordable, but it's about whether or not he decides to leave. But no one knows that. But um, but if he does decide to leave, I think it's genuinely an exciting one. That's what I'm thinking. It's like hopefully the best case scenario would be a younger Casemiro, and then we could get a very mobile player in front of him, and we could look at. Have we had like a good CDM from who was the last one we had? Like Matic, was it? Like who was actually an effective CDM? Because I think Casemiro goes a bit further forward than that. How? Yeah, is that a way of? That's actually quite a good one. That's quite a good one. So you like Tonali, so you'd go for like Tonali plus Belieber. That could work if you got Tonali being more defensive. There's definitely now Belieber's definitely a ball carrier, isn't he? So that could function. Somerville at West Ham. West Ham. When you consider Somerville and you think of Diouf and Fernandez, you got Jared Bowen as well, and then they sold Luca Paqueta. West Ham have actually got some good players. It's a bit surprising that West Ham are now where they are. So it feels a little bit like the West Ham team that got relegated a couple of decades ago, where they had quite a lot of good players then, and it just might be that if Spurs get it together, then West Ham are gone, and I think West Ham are going to get picked to pieces. I'd imagine that given the good players they've got at West Ham and probably the relegation clauses in their contracts, I think West Ham might struggle to get back up because they're not going to have many people in there at all, are they? No, the short list is growing by the day, but hopefully maybe in a couple of days, I'll say a couple of days, in a few weeks, we'll probably see this list gradually dropping down. Do you remember the striker short list we had? Who's that guy that was available on a free that we never looked at? He had a very good strike rate in the French league over about 4 years, and we didn't look at him, but he was on the list. We had other players on the list, like Delap was the first one, but we had a few strikers on the list, and then about a month later, we literally had like I think Sesko was like the last one. But if we hadn't bought Sesko, was there anyone actually available? Was like Walter Maida still available? I can't remember. But at the moment, we've got loads of options on the table, so it's not really a problem. So you think like yeah, Tonali's good, but I think the price is steep, isn't it? This is Newcastle though. They got the money for Isak. They spent. Don't forget, Newcastle spent nearly 60 on Wissa. They spent 60 on Langer. So Newcastle are basically just throwing money away. So they they need money because they're actually spending loads. But yeah, Tonali 100 million too much. Too many very good as a six. Say Tonali more 6-8 hybrid. You'd go say Bruno Guimaraes though would never go. Um, so Tomani and too many could work. I think if you're going to get too many, I think you then go for I think then you go for probably someone that's like more of an eight. Like I think you need to go for someone that's a bit more offensive. I think if you don't get if too many's not available, Tonali is someone that then you can get like Tonali and then put Anderson in front of him might be a bit better, but we'd have to see about that one. Jonathan David, that was it. Jonathan David. Where did he go and did he do well? But I remember he was like everybody used to like message me every single day saying, "Why are we not going for him?" Um, I literally just mentioned Bowen, didn't I? I said Bowen. Bowen's actually the he's under a longer term contract, so I think he's got a 5 year contract. No one thinks he's going to leave West Ham, but I think he's just no. I think that he's just going to be a, a long term deal etc. Newcastle are up against financial fair play. I think Newcastle have to sell one player, don't they? But they want to get the biggest possible price. I think it's mainly because if Newcastle sell Tonali, most people will look at Newcastle as a team that's going to be struggling and just they are a selling club now. And it's going to be difficult for them to attract players. They're probably going to have to throw money at people to get them to go up to Newcastle. And I don't think it's going to be successful. So I think the Newcastle hype train's kind of like over, isn't it? I think Newcastle they realise they have to pay big money to try and get people in. Bring Tonali back to the Premier League. I saw something about even Tony recently. I don't know what it was, but I was thinking maybe yeah maybe there'll be some sort of story. There is apparently the young striker that plays for Wolves. The name escapes me for a second, but apparently Manchester United are considering a move for him as well. It does feel a bit. It seems a little bit like Delap last season. Young striker, relegated team. The price is supposed to be about 30 million. I think he's potentially better than Delap, but yeah, it's not lots to go on age wise. But that's one player that might be talked about as well. So I think Wolves have got a few good players. We're going to probably see, their players linked for not loads of money. I wonder if Wolves are going to struggle, but it could be that United look at him. So that would be interesting. I was thinking if we've got a striker that hasn't got loads of experience, so I don't know why we're not going for a more experienced striker. But yeah. What happened to Delap? I don't know. Um, he's not quite as good as the video I got sent, or the video I saw on social media recently. I'd sent it to Cody, but I can send it to people. But I think the lab had some issues. He didn't work out as well as people were hoping to. And yeah, if we're going to go for another striker, would your preference be to go for somebody that's going to be more experience, like say like a Danny Welbeck, or like last year we were linked to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, like just like that kind of sort of age where lots of Premier League experience, but they're probably not going to be starting to expect every game. But they are pretty savvy. They are going to cause problems, and they're going to be pretty good options off the bench. They're going to cause problems to other teams, and maybe they're not going to be needing loads. So, or would you be looking at some of the players we're looking at as quite young? Because when we're looking at other players, and we're looking at, say, the young striker from Wolves. That would we look at him as a good option? It's going to cost 30 million. It's like Delap, or do you think we need to go for an experienced head like Danny Welbeck, something like that? He has had a bit of a renaissance, and yeah, I think Sesko will be good, but Sesko's one person, isn't he? And United do need to have more than one option. That's my question. I say against Chelsea, Belieber 91%. So fifth, yeah, he did really well, didn't he? He did well. I was trying to say this morning. Somebody told me they watched a player. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Belieber. They said they watched him. They didn't really rate him. Didn't think he was that great. And I said, well, that's one game, isn't it? And if you want like one or two games, then it's difficult. But I think United look at Belieber and still see something in him. So I don't see it as being a problem. Are you streaming tonight, Ryan? Just I don't know if you're live later or not. So who's out there in the Cavani mold of being super experienced but older and won't cry if he's on the bench? So yeah, do you think like would Danny Welbeck want to come to do that, or because I was thinking like along those lines and thinking that you need someone that's actually not going to worry about being first team player, would you? Because Benjamin Sesko is going to be that first team player. So is it going to be someone that will actually think, actually, I'd like to go to Man United, play like a handful of games, play the Champions League games, maybe get in around the team, but know that you're going to be backup. Like I don't know if Welbeck's going to go back now. It's I'm just thinking who else is there. Like even Tony's got to be too expensive salary wise. Say Matoma, but I don't think we can get another player from like Brighton though. They're just too expensive. It's no, it's pretty bad. Danny Welbeck's having a good season. I think if you look at like what he's saying, but no, I think Danny Welbeck's actually. We talked about Danny Welbeck last year, and I don't know if he was available or an option to get, but I think Danny Welbeck and Dominic Calvert-Lewin have kind of overachieved. But at the time, none of us thought they were good options. So I'm not going to sit here and say I said we should get Welbeck. No, I didn't say we should get Welbeck. I said we should go for. I can't even remember who I said now, but I thought at the time we should go for some sort of option. But no, say Welbeck to the World Cup. So you agree on Welbeck to the World Cup? It depends what the options are, isn't it? So who's going to be going? Like Harry Kane's obviously there, and I suppose like striker wise, I thought Tony actually did really well last international tournament, but I guess he's probably out of the spectrum now. I don't know. The thing that's going to be interesting in the World Cup is who's going to play in midfield for England. They probably got too many options at the moment, and we're going to be looking at maybe. It feels a little bit like. Do you remember the situation when you had Scholes and you had say you had Lampard, Gerrard. Now you've got Bellingham, you've got Mainu, you've got Anderson, you've got Wharton. I mean, probably like Bellingham's probably going to be definitely in there. You'd imagine Anderson, then like Wharton's good, and then I don't know. It's going to be tricky. Is Mainu going to get? Is Mainu going to the World Cup? Is he like definitely in the squad? It's going to be a tricky one. So yeah, if you're going to pick them on form, then yeah, that was stupid, isn't it? Like you put your best passing player on the side. Stupid. I think sometimes it's like they might be your best players individually, but you got to make a team that functions. Like, I was very disappointed with that one. I'm trying to think, was that Sven? I'm trying to think who it was because England had a top quality team. The only thing England didn't really have in that World Cup, if it's like 2002 type time, was they didn't really have an elite striker. Like when Alan Shearer retired, I don't think England had an elite striker then. Like Michael Owen wasn't as good. It was a bit disappointing. But anyway, if, if people got some questions about midfield options, we are going to be we'll probably be hammering midfield quite a lot at this point in time, and it's probably going to be the biggest story for the summer, isn't it? Then, does anyone have any opinions regarding Marcus Rashford that I can actually read out? Because I know people are disappointed. Do you think there's another, like, does this have loan deal part two written all over it? Is this going to be similar to the Sancho situation? Because I think the difference is, like, Sancho doesn't really contribute anything anywhere. Marcus Rashford, I don't know how his stats compare to other teams and other players in Barcelona, but it's also like Barcelona probably looking at a cheaper option. He will be quite expensive. His salary is going to go. So yeah, I thought you had opinions. What do you think Manchester United should do if Barcelona say we're not going to take him? Like, what is the best option? Because he's got a massive salary. Like, do Manchester United use him in any way, or are we still looking? Because I know we're looking to buy a left wing player. And I know he's pretty much like the people at the top of the club decided he was gone. I just wonder if there's any sort of situation where they could think that, like, does he go back to Aston Villa? Like, I'm just thinking, like doing that just costs us £300,000 a week, doesn't it? So if you think about 15, it's about £80 million a year salary. It might even be going up. So it might be £20 million worth of salary. I don't know. I don't know what. I mean, I don't know whether he's dropping off or this one. I'm saying, can we see a Rashford revival? So, any thoughts on this? I don't know. I think if you put him in the Premier League team, that he did play well for Aston Villa, then maybe that's what you could do. Maybe you could look at it and say like would Rashford want to go to Aston Villa? I don't know. It feels like he needs to go somewhere, be an elite player for a season, and then I think the trend is when you get to the age Rashford is, you picked up some of the injuries Rashford's got. I don't know, I think people are actually looking at longer term investments. So if Manchester United, if there's a team looking for needing that sort of player, like could you go for say swap for Rodgers? The thing that Rashford's probably got in his favour is that unlike someone like Sancho or Garnacho, he does get goals. And one of the things I like about Rodgers is he is a goal scorer. So when we're looking at some of the attacking players and some of the wingers, I look at Rodgers a bit more favourably and think, actually, no, he's got a proven goal scoring record, gets you assists as well. So I would be looking at Rodgers as a better option in terms of like some of the players we're looking at, and would be someone that. How old's Rodgers, by the way? But I think the valuation of Rodgers is about 70 million. So maybe it could be a deal where we actually, you know, maybe it's going to be a situation where a deal could be done. I don't know. No, it's a bit like Sancho, isn't it? I think it's like a warning for some players is that I would say, "Oh, Mickey, welcome to chat." You say Rashford is in control. The players have the players have the money, don't they? The players have the contract, so it's up to them, really, isn't it, where they go? But he wanted to go to Barcelona. He couldn't have picked a worse team. That there was definitely an offer on the table from AC Milan. He should have gone there. They had a bit of a resurgence as well, so he could have taken Rafael Leao's place and say, "We react. That's all Ineos can do." I think with this one, I think it's lesson learned. You don't hand out those sort of contracts. And again, I think the Sancho one was a mistake. The Anthony one was a mistake. I think with Rashford, like the pay rise is probably a mistake, but yeah, there's nothing you can do about it now. Rogers is 23. Yeah, that would be a good deal actually. Like I thought it was a bit for some reason, I don't know why. I thought Rogers was a couple of years older. So that could be one where that potentially I think Rogers was mentioned, but if you got Diamonde, Rogers and Dai and like who else is linked in terms of left wing, I think Rogers up there, like based on based on what he's done, particularly against us as well, I think Rogers might be a good option. So Milan, I think what I mean is they've had a bit of a I think they've had a bit of a resurgence, aren't they? On the top four in yeah, on the top four in terms of like Serie A at the moment. I don't, what I mean is that Rashford's played for a big club like Manchester United. That he's gone to Barcelona now. It's a bit like Beckham, but he's not really wanted. So I don't know. It's he just needs he probably had his opportunities. He just needs to take them more. But I think what I read was, considering his salary, Barcelona didn't think that he was actually good enough. So no, you have to be realistic. If he went to Bayern Munich, I think he would do well. Like if he went to play alongside Harry Kane, I think he would do well there. The league would be a bit easier. I mean, I think Sanchez is going to go back to Germany as well to the same team. So I think that indicates to me that you're going to find your level there. It's not going to be too difficult. So I wouldn't worry too much. But yeah, but to go back to sort of our main stories. Has anybody got any midfield questions before? I'm trying to think how long we're going to be live for. So we might be live for like another 5 minutes. People got some questions. If you are new, and there's a few people that are new tonight, we are going to be doing like more streams, like we do the morning stream, which probably will be a bit more breaking news. And I think if people have got some comments and questions, but we are kind of going to start going over similar sort of information, but saying most players like the discipline to play at top level. I think it's probably like years in the making, isn't it? That I think Manchester United have had like when you look at United playing badly over the last couple of years, Bruno Fernandes was just a dominant player, wasn't he? And I think Bruno Fernandes, you got like 10 out of 10 effort every single game. And that's why now Manchester United are on this upward trajectory. Bruno Fernandes is like a key part of the team, and people like Bruno Fernandes is years older than Rashford, but people look at Bruno Fernandes as like he's the best player. So I think United fans, it's difficult to kind of change your opinion on players. But welcome to the community. Oh, Mickey, hope you're good tonight. But on a more positive, um, are people feeling like confident about we did do somebody posted this morning about financial situation at the club in terms of how much money can Manchester United spend, and I think the situation we're thinking about with the Champions League qualification, which is almost a done deal, is it going to be a situation where Manchester United don't need to worry? Let's say I know people are concerned that we're not going to spend enough money, or are we going to be able to address every issue we need? And I think the money's there, like it should be there. So I've just found the story I saw earlier today. This is one then I saw that again, it's not the first time I've seen it, but it's the first time I've seen a price. And it is in terms of backup striker, would be people be thinking in terms of looking at this player from Wolves and looking at Mane, would you go for this player £30 million from Wolves that are relegated. I think he's 19 years old. So this would be again quite uh, quite young signing, and I don't know. It does seem to be that United are going for younger and younger players. I'm just wondering whether is it a bit too soon for him to jump up to Manchester United? I can't say I've watched Wolves enough to say that. I mean, you can't really judge him by goals because Wolves have been such a disappointing team this season. I'm just thinking, to be fair, like, would it be a good option? Like £30 million, it does like no. You could look at maybe getting a more experienced free agent, but I think £30 million, it's worth a discussion. But I'm not sure if I think it's going to be um, great, to be honest. Are you worried about the amount of work needed in midfield? I think there's so many midfield options out there that it makes me not concerned too much because I think there's some good options out there. And I think if, like I said, if Manchester United miss out on, so if we miss out on like about three or four options, I don't overly worry. I think we've got other options we can try and get. So I'm not massively concerned that we'll get nobody. I just think at this point in time, it's possible that we could be looking at potentially a different situation. So I think if United say we prioritise Anderson, that's one thing. But I don't think necessarily it means we have to worry if we don't get Anderson. It's just that situation. So yeah, I think it's different. I think it's not a bad situation. But let's go through some of the comments and see that I don't think it's panic time yet. Put it that way. Mickey says only four in and one out last year. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Only I think this year you need to get a little bit more. You need to get a lot more people in. Like getting in just one is like getting in just four is obviously not enough. And I think if you're looking at this season, you need to get a lot more than that, don't you? I would say Sully Talks might come on in the summer. He was saying that he might be able to come on and answer questions. I'm just thinking, what do you think the expertise, like the area of expertise for Sully Talks is? Because that might be someone to get in. Julian Nagelsmann open to joining Manchester United, but the main obstacle has always been and always will be the World Cup. Manchester United, they said they didn't want to get head coaches in that were in the World Cup, so maybe might have to change their opinion regarding that one. But yeah, Nagelsmann opens during the World Cup, but the main obstacle has always been that. So I thought it was one that was going to be not necessarily as as wanted, but yeah. So this might be the first time you're not going to get dragged into it. There's going to be a lot of it might be there might be a lot of players to watch that are going to be scouted. It might be less stressful than watching Manchester United. So who knows? It might be that. And so yeah, Anderson, City, Wharton, Liverpool. That's two gone already. Then that's why I think Belieber and Angela Stiller might be the people we're getting. So I think if you have two people off the table, there's still lots to go for, isn't there? So I look at that and think, yeah, you make a good point, but I think United, yeah, there's probably 10 targets, isn't there? If two are off the table, I don't think it's a big worry. So yeah, two off the table, we've still got options there. So yeah, I don't think it's the biggest worry regarding this one. So let's look at some of the comments. So I might wrap up in about 5 minutes, like I said. But if you've got any final questions before we do that, so then just get them in. If you're new to the channel, there is a Discord and a Facebook group. So Cody's always posting information in the Facebook group. I will be like running the Discord as well, putting information in there. There's a lot of information. So if you use those platforms, there's a pinned link, so please check out those as well. That's something that we're gradually building up as we go along. But just looking for any sort of questions before we go. But no, in summary, are people optimistic about the transfer window? Like, I suppose a yes or no. Are you optimistic that Manchester United might hopefully get some of the deals we need to get done? I'm cautiously optimistic. I think there's a lot to do, and I think Manchester United have got a reasonable chance at doing uh, at least fixing midfield. I think we'll fix midfield, and I'm not sure if we're going to get all the other players we want. Like Rashford's not going to come back, but I think we're going to be getting probably a left attacking player, those sort of things. Richard Rios, apparently Richard Rios is actually having a good season at Benfica, and I did a video about him. Actually, recently there's a video on the channel about Richard Rios. About I think the situation is that Benfica want to sell. He's going to cost £39 million apparently, but it's an option. He came kind of to the fore in the World Club Cup. People were talking up Richard Rios at that point in time. He's done well in Benfica. I think Benfica might be unbeaten, so Benfica doing well. But I think with Richard Rios, he's one that's on Manchester United's radar for sure. But again, I think the price might be it might be that Man United decide not to go for him anyway. They might be looking at other options, but no, I think he's done well. I think people that watch him say we should have signed him last season when he was 26 million, but no, he's one that's a little bit off the radar. And so yeah, I think Nagelsmann's a bit of a gamble unless we seriously update the squad. So I think to challenge, like if Nagelsmann comes in. Um, I get the feeling at the moment, if you're talking about Michael Carrick and the situation at United, I think United probably need to give Carrick a bit more time and then maybe have a discussion. If they give Carrick a year, just say they give him a year, Manchester United fix midfield, then Carrick's got an option. No, Carrick's got the chance to prove that he can manage in the Premier League and run a Champions League campaign. See if he can at least match more experienced managers like Unai Emery at Aston Villa. If he can do that, then maybe he can kick on. But I think it's really difficult to sit here and say, like, can Michael Carrick uh, win trophies at Manchester United? Has Michael Carrick got the ability to do that to out, outthink some of the top managers in the league? I think it's an unknown quantity. I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester United think actually let's have a bit of continuity. Let's keep Carrick for 12 months. If he improves and the team improves, then you can think about it. And so yeah, Mane at Wolves, he's apparently on the radar as like a backup striker. So I think United are looking at these deals every year anyway. We looked at trying to get Delap. We're looking at Mane, 30 million, same sort of price, similar sort of situation. I think United just see that as if it doesn't work, it's not going to be too expensive. Like I said, like Delap last season, like Delap, we didn't know how it was going to work out, but £30 million is not that expensive for an up and coming striker that looks okay in the Premier League. It's not the worst deal in the world, is it? I say we struggled one game a week. I say we struggled one game a week, but we are third in the league. So overall, since Carrick, results have been quite good. But I get the feeling Manchester United that I don't know. I don't. When I see a story saying that Nagelsmann wants Manchester United, I don't know if it's actually true. But because I saw a story yesterday that said Nagelsmann wants Real Madrid, so I don't know what to believe. It's a little bit. It's no. It's just. There's too much up in the air, isn't there? Manchester United won't make a decision because they seem. I think they want us to find out if Luis Enrique would actually join. So you wish that people would just let Carrick be interim, then in June talk about it, so less pressure on the whole team. And I watched the Michael Carrick interview in the press conference, and the journalists ask every single day, every single press conference Michael Carrick does, the journalists were asking him, like, do you want to be Manchester United head coach next season? Of course he does. Then the journalists say, right, what time frame are you going to find out? And Michael Carrick was just trying to diffuse it and say, look, at the moment, I'm just focusing on the rest of the season. There's a lot of games. There's a lot to play for still. We need to make sure we keep going, and this thing will get discussed. Like Michael Carrick's just relaxed. Michael Carrick just wants to get on with his job and go to the end of the season. The press conference, though, they ask the same thing every single every single match. He's going to get asked if Manchester United win the next game. He's going to get asked now, do you think you should be getting the head coach job now, Michael? Do you think you've done enough to get this? They're going to ask relentlessly. And the club have said that it's not 100% dependent on results, is it? it's not 100%. So I heard that Real Madrid job. I heard that Jose Mourinho and also Nagelsmann were both throwing their hat in the ring. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I heard. So it might be, it might be that there's going to be potentially a lack of options for Manchester United. So can you imagine a situation that if we get to the end of the season and yeah, exactly. If you don't get reinforcements, if you don't get a good transfer window, it doesn't matter who's going to be in charge. Like you're not going to have the players. Like you need to have the players that can lead you to trophies. But no, I think the situation might be that Man United might have one or two head coaches they think might be their best options. But if they don't want to come to Manchester United, then Carrick might be seen as a safe option because under Michael Carrick, no one's thinking we're going to get mid-table football. Like you can look at the minimum and say, under Michael Carrick, we actually did quite well. So say, if Maresca joins Man City, as we said, I think he will ask for former captain Enzo Fernandez to join him, and that is 100% the story we started off with today. And if Enzo Fernandez goes to Man City, I think Rodri, they might let him go then. I think Rodri wants to leave anyway. Man City kind of wanted him to stay, but Rodri would go. But maybe Man City still get Anderson as well. It would be annoying, wouldn't it? But no. Do you think there's a lot of like kind of ifs and things, isn't there? Do you think Pep goes? Because the only thing I could think of is if if you have a situation where Manchester City win the league, do you think Pep will then go? Like, do you think Pep's bought players in January to go, right, let's get over the line one more time and then leave? Because I think, do you remember Alex Ferguson? We lost the title on goal difference, didn't we, to City? And then he went, right, we're going to buy Van Persie, we're going to win another title, then we're going to go. And then United won a title, then Alex Ferguson retires. Do you think Pep's going to go, right, let's get Semenyo in, get Gahey in, let's win one more Premier League title, and then go. You would think from like looking from the outside, you'd feel that City, if they win the Premier League title this season, they're probably favourites next season. Although Liverpool will probably be stronger, and it might. You still see them as favourites, but I don't know. It's tricky. Do you want Anderson? I think Anderson's a good player. I think Anderson, like again, I think Anderson's going to go to City, but I would definitely be looking at him saying City dropped 65 million on Semenyo. Now they want Diamonde on the wing and say, yeah, so this is like the story you're talking about in terms of that as well, that you know, City are not, no, they're happy to not just to get Manchester United's like main target, but also Diamonde is going to be linked to Man City as well, unfortunately. I think I did have like something, let me just see if I can find it. But there was like a picture I've got. Let me just put it back on the screen. Just trying to find the picture. But I think this is the story you're talking about. Let me just fit it to the screen properly. But this is linked to the story as well, isn't it? It's about Manchester City's targets. But you are right. Then let's just put this on screen. And the pictures they've chosen some interesting pictures for this one, but for people that maybe can't tell from the image, this is Diamonde and this is Junior Creepy. These are two players that over the last, well, Diamonde's been on the radar for a while, hasn't he? About 100 million euros apparently is the price, but no, so that's about 85 million pounds. And Junior Creepy, Manchester City, they're so bloody greedy, aren't they? They want every single player at the club, but they just dropped, say, what, 65 on some menu. You got the Mark Gahey as well, on top of all the other things as well. Um, so yeah, Pep might be waiting to see what happens with the charges. So I don't know. Hopefully they do something a bit more serious, but I'm just wondering whether if Pep wins and it has like, a court case hanging over him, is it time to move on? I don't know what Pep's plan is, but after the World Cup, is there going to be potentially big World Cup job for Pep to walk into? Like, is there going to be a national team he wants to manage, and is that going to be? and what it goes for. I mean, everything's kind of there's a big managerial merry-go-round, isn't there? Is Pep Guardiola going to be the key to this? Like, is Pep Guardiola going to leave Man City, and then are they going to be getting Maresca? Possibly, that's what people think as one option. I'm sure that they'd want to get someone like Luis Enrique, but I don't know I think Luis Enrique at the moment is going to be having a very tempting offer from PSG, and at the moment PSG is probably a better team than Man City on recent results. But if Maresca goes, then Maresca might be taking Enzo Fernandez. So it might be that depending on who's going to be in charge of certain clubs, it might be that different deals happen. So yeah, Manchester City might be looking at Diamonde, but apparently Liverpool are also looking at Diamonde. I think what this is saying is that Diamonde is on the list of everybody. So everybody's going to be looking at that one. What's my ideal window? My ideal window is going to be very expensive and it's going to involve a lot of players, but ideally it's going to be three players in midfield. And I probably so I probably said this a few times, but if you're new to the channel, I'll go through the players that I would like. So I think I'm probably thinking Anderson off the table. So I'm probably thinking you got too many or Tonali as the more expensive options. But I think realistically, you might be looking at Belieber, you might be looking at Alex Scott, you might be looking at possibly Angela Stiller, but you'd be looking at a range of those names. Like there's a few out there you'd be looking at, and I wouldn't be surprised if Manchester United like go down the slightly cheaper route in terms of like some players. So you got those options to look into. Then once you fix midfield, I'm not really tied to like a specific midfielder. I think it's just get three midfield players in, get that sorted out. I think then I think based on because Delit's injured and because of Lissandro Martinez issues as well, we've got Maguire. I think Heaven and Yora are a bit young. I think we need to get probably a centre back. I don't know how much we should spend. I would say Murillo might be a bit too expensive, so Van Hecken might be a better option. I don't know. I think a centre back option, probably left back cover would be good. And then it's like you go for a striker or some sort of like I know Cody likes Junior Krupi. I think maybe you're looking at a striker, but potentially, I think Man United might go for a left winger that could also maybe play striker, that sort of thing. Where did the 65 million we had to spend on Semenyo go? Apparently, it's going to go in the Diamonde fund. But again, if Manchester United do Manchester City just wait for a press release or wait for Man United to say what the top target is, then go and buy it? Because it feels a bit like United said they wanted Semenyo and City went and bought him. It seems like United want Anderson, City are going to go and buy him and we're linked to Diamonde. The only thing about with Diamonde is um, he's at Leipzig, isn't he? I think he's at Leipzig. So the only thing we could have is that maybe Vivel's going to know more of the people there, and maybe it could be maybe that could swing the deal a bit in our favour. That we can maybe have some influence and say, look, this is the project we can offer you, and it's going to be difficult though. If City want him, they're probably going to offer him more salary as well. But United need to actually look at this and say, look, if we want to compete with some of these players, like there's no point saying we want to get Semenyo in. You have to actually be bold enough, and you have to actually put the money on the table. Like Semenyo got a much better offer from City than we were prepared to pay. So you've got to look at that as a factor. So, but also, thanks for your question. I was going to say, what's your ideal transfer window? Like, and a lot of people will know. I want a lot. I want a lot. So it's going to be tricky. So let me have a quick look through the comments. So I can't remember who asked the question. I can't find the comment now. But I was going to say, yeah. Um, so just looking at your name, it's difficult to pronounce, but H. Oh, God. So thanks for getting involved. I was going to say, what's your ideal transfer window? Because I'm looking at the screen, it's quite small writing, so I'm not sure how you pronounce your name. But what would be your ideal window, and what would you be thinking? I think there's no perfect one, is there? There's just lots of options that we could be looking at. And saying, yeah, forget the market. Goodwill Kakonki. put him in the first team to be Luke Shaw's reinforcement, and say, yeah, Noah's one that people have talked about in terms of like an option, but say finish and ball striking, rotational left wing. Maybe Lacey could be getting a bit more time as well. Saka Kone, so there could be one or two academy players. But I think over the whole season, if one to two academy players get a bit of game time, then maybe I think we need to still get that. United have said they're going to get four big signings or important signings. I think by that they mean like Cunha and Buemo money. So I think three midfielders are going to cost big money. I think a left winger is going to cost quite big money, and I think the rest of it's going to be a bit cheaper. That's what we're probably thinking. I would say, will the policy of only signing players that want us be restrictive? I think with this one, I think it depends how you see that. I think what they're saying is that they talk to the players first, and then like they agree terms with the players before they go to buy the players. So I don't think it's that players will have to come out and say they want to join Manchester United, but I think it will be they will have private conversations first. And this is basically so United will not go down the policy of they're not going to offer money to a club if the player doesn't show interest. So I don't think it's that players have to, be pushing to join Manchester United. I think it's that the players have to at least be open to that. I don't think they're going to be going down the route where they waste their time essentially. So I think if Manchester United wanted to, if when we spoke to Belieber and Belieber said, "I want to join Manchester United," and was interested and agreed terms, then that can progress, can it? So I think I think the restrictive thing is I think actually limiting the age of players might be restrictive. So having a policy where players over the age of 28 are not considered, I think is a little bit restrictive because there are sometimes options where you can get some experienced players that do help. So I think that is probably somewhat a bit restrictive. So you would like to have Anderson, Diamonde, Stiller, Hall, Belieber, or Gume and Van Heck. Yeah, Van Heck is definitely one that's definitely jumped up the list a little bit as well. About 35 million gets the deal done. I think he's pretty good. Um, Says that's sensible. We don't want any Alexis Sanchez. Is that in terms of like age? I think if you're looking at someone that's older, they've got to be like a lot cheaper. Like the Alexis Sanchez one was stupid money, wasn't it? Like really stupid. Who do you want, JR? If you're going to put a list across that, I'll probably ask you on Sunday in the calling show as well. But if you're going to be looking at it, that if we're going to spend big, I want it to be someone like an Anderson. And I know, like I always like quote you saying that when you're looking at this, I think Van Hecker's a better option than Van der Ven. It's like for me, if I was going to say, I've watched both of them play recently. I think Van der Ven's a bit too error prone for my liking. And there's a bit of a question mark over whether I know people like him because he's quick. I think he uses his speed to make up for some errors of judgment sometimes. I think he can mask errors with his recovery speed. So I think that's one that I'm not sure about Van der Ven. He's got they're at the age where they got improvements, but I don't know. If you watch Spurs this season, it's genuinely difficult to make a case for buying their defenders, isn't it? So it's not great. Van Hecker, I think, is good. He's going to be what half the price of Van der Ven. I think he'd be a good option. I say Anderson. Yeah, you did say you might have to backtrack then on the streams you've come on because you said that he was like one of the best players you'd seen recently. So yeah, if he goes to City, then he's just a mercenary that's ruined his career. So just like Jack Grealish, I wanted Jack Grealish when he was at Villa. And I thought it would have been a good signing. If Villa got relegated, it could have been a different story, couldn't it? Um, can you imagine like these Spurs players? They've got zero fight. I'd be so questioning players buying. Like, look at the fight that West Ham players have put in over the last like few months, and they sold one of their best players in January. They sold Luca Paqueta in January, didn't they? Look at Bournemouth; they sold their best players. So no, it's pretty crazy. Um, so you got yeah, a Porro. I don't know. Like he was linked a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be. Yeah. I think when you're looking at the situation, Van der Ven has missed significant chunks of every season since 21-22, and this is something that you're going to say that, yeah, I think poor aerially as well. Then say look at Phillips, who signed for Leeds. Say be warned, Anderson. Have you seen this then? Like for people that want to put off Anderson, then if you look at the story on screen, is that Manchester City are looking at Enzo Fernandez as a possible replacement. So if actually though this story was saying that they might be looking at Enzo Fernandez as a signing, and what implications does that have? But it also shows that Manchester City won't be just signing Anderson as midfielder; they'll be signing other players as well, and there'll be no guarantee that Anderson gets a starting position. Like you can be Nottingham Forest best player, but we saw what happened with Trafford. We saw what happened with Mahrez. Mahrez was a you know, Premier League winner with Leicester, one of the best players definitely, and he struggled to get games, and in the end he left because of that reason. Jack Grealish kept getting benched. There's no guarantee. And I mean, if you come to Manchester United, we've got no midfield. Like you're literally definitely coming in as a starting player at this point in time. So no, I think Phillips is one that I think it's with City. It's like anything. It might be that he's Anderson's looking at least. Uh, the thing from City's point of view is they have a good bench, don't they? It's maybe about how you use it because we probably had. Now we used to have say Teddy Sheringham and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and that like those players on the bench. Sometimes what I went to one match where Cristiano Ronaldo was on the bench for the first half, but he came on and destroyed Wigan in the second half. So no, you do need to have good players on the bench as well. But maybe with Pep, sometimes it feels like players are frozen out for a bit and there's favourites that start. But no, very difficult, isn't it? So you want to go for one of them and say you're not convinced with non-Premier League players and say no hipster players. So like no Donny van der Beek, no Xavi Simmons. I'm trying to think which of the hipster players we need to. Like, I think Anthony is probably the most hipster player people were talking about. I didn't watch Anthony Ajax. I don't watch that league, but I was told by a couple of people who I now have to be very skeptical if they hype players up. But people did say that there was a lot of there's a lot of promise with some players, isn't there? So I get the feeling United have already done the due diligence of Anderson, and perhaps he has suggested his club of choice to them, and it's not us. I could be wrong. Do you get the feeling that with this so just before I finish tonight, that I might go for I keep saying I'm going to finish, but I just remembered that this is why I was thinking that it might be possibly like a worthwhile talking about story is let me find this Alex Scott story. Just give me 1 second. I just changed it for a different picture. But do you think this is why Manchester United, there's stories like this, like that United might be thinking Anderson's not coming. Alex Scott is a bit off the radar, but it does. There was an article about 2 hours ago that said United are going to offer 50 million for him, and Bournemouth don't need to sell. But do you get the feeling that that's going to happen? That do you think Manchester United have actually gone right? Let's get Belieber and let's get Angela Stiller. It's like they know that's going to happen. So you're glad the Casemiro exit is not dependent on the sale? No. And so yeah, so no hipster managers either. Do we need a Premier League proven manager as well? Do we need that as well? Do we need some Premier League proven coaches and Premier League proven medical staff? I don't know. That's quite funny. Hipster managers with hipster players. I don't know. It's expensive, isn't it? Yeah. Is Ariola a hipster manager? Glasner, De Silva? I don't know. So no to Emery. A lot of people like Emery. I don't know. It'd be quite nice to see Carrick actually doing this one as well. But no, so Anderson, it's two ways what the player wants, what the suitors offer. I think City might be making an offer he can't refuse. I really do. I'm thinking that with reluctance, and this might be the next time we cover Anderson, it might be done deal to City, and it might all be like moving past that and moving on. Um, no, I think Alex Scott, Belieber, and Stiller. I think they're for me. I think they're very credible options, and if you put João Gomez in there as part of that as well, I still think there's potential with Adam Wharton. I think Manchester United see him as like a secondary option if they can't get certain players. Um, I'm starting to actually hope that we get too many. I don't know what people think, but because of the story being, it felt so random to talk about it a couple of nights ago. But I'm just thinking if too many is actually uh, perfectly fine fitness wise, and if too many thinks, the player, there's a lot of issues at Real Madrid beyond football. And I think at Manchester United, there does seem to be things moving in the right direction. Like he's going to get to play in a team that's actually improving in front of Old Trafford, where it's a ridiculous atmosphere. It's probably the only club he could come to that's got the sort of fan base size of Real Madrid. Everything else would feel like a big down. I think feel like a massive step down in terms of like the size of the club. So I don't know if you're going to leave from Real Madrid, then maybe he's looking at that like Casemiro did that. Maybe he's thinking actually maybe it's time if if he's won a lot of things at Real Madrid. If Real Madrid decides to go in a different direction and they're looking to bring players in, why not? Why not come to United? Uh, I'm starting to think he would be get him in as a good six as well. I say Alex Scott sounds like a data well scouted option, like you said. I think it is. I think it's one where you look at it and think Manchester United have done some research. I think Alex Scott might be one of those Lamon signings that nobody thinks about, a little bit under the radar. But when you mention it, no one says anything negative about it. That's it. Will anyone say anything negative about Alex Scott? I think people just go, okay, that's actually yeah. One thing I'd say about Bournemouth is they have a lot of energy in their team. They cause us a lot of problems. I can't remember the last time we beat Bournemouth. Even when I feel like we should do, we still end up like conceding goals. They still cause us problems. Camavinga, I'd have to have a look into Camavinga. I just assumed with Camavinga, he was linked to United recently, so I kind of dismissed it, thinking it wouldn't happen. But I don't know. I'm kind of a bit out of the loop with Real Madrid's pecking order in terms of like what order, like Camavinga, Tchouaméni, who else is at the club? But you have like Bellingham, like who's actually getting benched out of these players? But I think Camavinga was linked loads about 3 years ago, wasn't he? And we are talking about him. I can't remember where he played for before, but we were talking about him. I think about 3 to 4 years ago. So yeah, I don't know about Camavinga. I'll have to get back to you because I looked into too many loads recently because of the stories we're covering. So hipster players, someone doing big things against a slower league, then going up against the likes of West Ham fullbacks. I think what you're saying is it's basically Anthony. And Anthony came in and for 3 games looked like a player. He scored a great goal against Arsenal and looked good, and then and then he just almost retired, didn't he? He just didn't really do anything. I think it was too difficult for him. So you want us to be courageous and say go for Bawadi, Stiller, and Gume, go for no Premier League players at all. I think Man United are too frightened to do that. I think it's going to be. I think I do like the idea of going for one of those options, and I think they're going to go for Stiller. I think they're going to go for someone like I think Believer's going to be a Man United player. That's what I'm guessing. This feels a bit like going to Brighton and saying, "Look, 100 million took the piss, guys. Make us a sensible offer. Here's 50. How much do you really, really want?" And maybe that 50 million is not going to happen, is it? But it could open the door to a 60, or it could like open the middle ground, couldn't it? So I think Belieber will get eventually done. What will be interesting is if we get Belieber done, what will people? I'm going to support any player we sign and hope they do really well. I'm just wondering whether Belieber will surprise people because lots of people have said that Belieber hasn't done very well this season. but it's difficult to say how he's going to work in a Man United team. I think he could surprise people. Camavinga's, yeah, maybe that recent injury record would kind of put me off a little bit. And say our strikers, yeah, I suppose when you're looking at the strikers from abroad, these were so like very, very experienced strikers, weren't they? See, Cavani, Zlatan, they've been banging in goals um, for ages, haven't they? So I think with Zlatan, when you could score the amount of goals he did in Serie A, when it was tough to score goals and the level was higher, and then Zlatan pretty much did it in every single league, didn't he? I was genuinely surprised how good Zlatan was at his age to join Manchester United for the Premier League. To join the Premier League at that age and still be one of the best players, I think it shows how good he is as a player. I mean, I have to admit, when I first saw Zlatan, it might have been an Inter Milan player, and I think United might have played against Inter Milan. I don't know if he was playing for them in the late 90s or early 2000s, but we played against Zlatan a couple of times, and when we played against them, the commentators always said Zlatan one to watch, and he was always pretty rubbish in the first few games I saw him against the Premier League opposition, and it wasn't until later on I just saw how good he was. But that's Cavani was good for a season, but then so next season. I think Cristiano Ronaldo actually was one of the most prolific people we got. So he's probably about one of the top goal scorers we've had in recent years. Yeah, people are skeptical, aren't they? People are skeptical. Sancho, I know when you look at it, when Sancho was about 21, he had 20 goals, didn't he? And about 15 assists. He had a really good season. Like, you look at what he's doing, really good season. I just think that he came to the Premier League. I think he just struggled and then didn't kick on. Um, it's true. I think we are starting to do something as well. That we are actually starting to scout in South America. This is something that United are doing. Also, Brighton are looking for the replacement for Belieber in South America, but I think United are actually doing the same sort of thing. The only difference is going to be that genuinely, maybe not next season, not last season, but generally, Manchester United will be probably looking for players that are a bit more advanced than like Brighton and Bournemouth are doing. So it might be that they're not ready to go to Manchester United straight away. But yeah, say last summer the Brighton never quoted a price. They said Believer was not for sale, and it's the mainstream media that came up with the 100 million figure. That do you think also with that one that with the mainstream media and with Brighton and Believer situation that I think another factor was that Manchester United left it way too late to try and get Believer. That we know that Brighton have players lined up now, but I don't think they did at the time. If we'd have gone to Brighton in the like early on in the transfer, it might have been that the price was there might have been a deal could have been done. It might still be that it was too expensive, but if you go to the end of the transfer window, then you're never going to get a deal done, are you? It's like for me, it's just very, very unrealistic. I think it's a bit crazy, but I think it's probably about time to wrap up. For people that are watching and people that are new to the channel as well, thanks for getting involved. So I know there's like a couple of different names I've seen tonight that I didn't recognise, but big up to Mickey in the chat for getting involved as well. For saying, yeah, so yeah, it does show that as well. Brighton have options lined up where our options are at Brighton and they're at and our options are actually already playing for Premier League teams, aren't they? Um, yeah, also be up to JR in the chat as well. United till I die, Pundit Coyote. I say the moderator's doing a great job as well. Rob All's United, and I think Bilal left a while ago, but Bilal's well, and Berber will be streaming as well. Also, there's a couple of other accounts I saw tonight I've not seen before, so welcome to the channel, and I think you'll enjoy the football conversation here. We will be getting a few more guests on in the near future, but if you ever look over previous videos on the channel, we do a call-in show once a week on a Sunday, so we'll be doing that again today. This Sunday. But yeah, I think you're probably like your views and players and stuff is probably going to be in line with a lot of the players we're looking at as well. And big up to you, DJ. DJ, where have you been? Like, I was just streaming until you turned up, and you made me wait like an hour and 55 minutes. What's going on? That you should have been here. You should have been here. What's going on? No, I won't be doing. Honest, my voice is starting to go a little bit, so I can't really talk for too much longer. That's why I was saying goodbyes. But DJ, big up to you. You should talk at the Discord, DJ. You're in the Discord. I think other people should get involved because people don't get notifications. And how are you going to find out when we're talking about football if you don't follow that one? But no, I'll be saying goodbye right now, and it will be ending. But we'll be live tomorrow morning about 9. Am I a believer? I don't know. I'm someone that's going to guess what's going to happen, and I think that based on what I've seen in the news, I think Manchester United think they need to get a midfielder signed like before the World Cup at least. And I'm guessing that Belieber, Alex Scott, and Angela Stiller. I'm guessing that two of those will happen. That's my guess. I'm quite excited though. I think we had a Garte in our club, and he was like not the most effective. I think it's going to be good. So I don't think I'll be other side of the world. Okay, that's a reasonable excuse. I lose track of like where people are from. Are you from Scotland? Am I right in thinking that? Is that like, or is that old? Or is that old man DJ? I can't remember where you're from now, but there is definitely somebody that's got a similar name that I was thinking Scotland. But no, I saw you earlier today, so I think you know my propaganda regarding potential midfield player targets I want and think are going to happen. I just think that the £100 million signings they're never going to happen, are they? No, my voice is a so. As we as better said, don't forget to click the likes if you enjoyed the video. But if you can share it with mutual football fans as well, people you know that like talking about football, and if they're Manchester United fans, even better. If they're rival fans, then I don't, I'm not going to pretend to like their club because I don't. But they sometimes we'll have discussions, and a few rival fans will get involved. But generally, it's because we're signing players they want, and they get angry. But yeah, big up to you guys. Have a great rest of your night. We'll be live tomorrow morning about 9 a.m. I'm hoping. Until then, if you see any good news, post it in the Discord and we will cover that story tomorrow. But until then, have a great night and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.